Jenny, hi. Sorry I'm a bit late with this, but I got your questions about alternative worship, so I'll do my best to answer them. I mean, in the UK there's an arts festival called Greenbelt, and that's kind of been a home base where various groups have encountered, I suppose, alternative worship as opposed to the contemporary worship scene. And it still is in many ways. But the first two groups in the UK to do anything new were a group called the 9 o'clock service in Sheffield, and then shortly after a group called the Late Late service in Glasgow. And for me it was encountering the Late Late service from Glasgow that inspired me in terms of alternative worship. I remember I was working at the time for Youth for Christ in Bath, and for my birthday somebody gave me their first music tape. It was called Music from the Late Late Service Volume 1, and when I played it, it was kind of shocking because it was dance music and the lyrics were, I don't know, had a lot more depth to them, covered different themes. I remember one track on there, for example, called Got to Struggle, and the lyric went something like, you've got to struggle, you've got to strive for freedom, you've got to struggle, you've got to... oh, I can't remember the rest, but then the verse was, Jacob wrestled with an angel, Jesus argued with the devil, to be holy is to struggle free from every kind of evil. And it was sort of wrapped over this dance track. And then there was a version of the Creed on there, a track called I Believe. And I suppose for me, when I listened to that tape, it was like, wow, you can have worship music and like it, and that may sound strange, but it hadn't occurred to me before. And that really changed the direction of what I was doing. I was very inspired by that. And we were running a youth event in Bath at the time, and so we just started writing our own songs. So getting that tape was sort of a catalyst for me for thinking, well, anything's possible, and that set me off on the journey. And the other thing that happened, I think, was that we started a nightclub for young people in Bath, and at the time we were running this sort of city-wide celebration for Christian young people, but doing this nightclub for under 18s, I suddenly realised that even though we had this relevant nightclub thing going on, that the young people from that wouldn't relate to the contemporary worship kind of thing we were doing at all. So we said with the team of volunteers that were there, we've got to work out how to do worship in the nightclub with the decks and whatever else, and so that was how the journey began in terms of mission, I suppose, wanting to connect with young people that were part of that culture. That's a good question, I think. One of the things about alternative worship, I suppose, is it has put a lot of energy into creative worship, and I think some groups have got burnt out because they kind of put too much effort into the worship stuff, but typically we do something with a lot of creativity once a month, and we have a pattern now where somebody will take the lead in that, but and pull together a small group of people, maybe 3, 4, 5 people. So people aren't involved in every kind of creative thing that takes place, but we love creativity, we love ideas, and I think it's one of the things that energises us, actually. So once we get on a roll with ideas, it's fine. It's part of what we call our ethos. Yeah, I don't know what to say beyond that. I mean, maybe it reflects the group that we are, that we're artistic and enjoy that kind of thing. I mean, one of the changes we made a while back, perhaps 2 or 3 years back, was that we were recognising that whilst we were into the sort of artistic, creative side of things, if you weren't, why would you join our community? And that got us thinking that we should put a bit less focus on creative worship and create space for other things. So one of our ethos words is a word called engage, that's about getting involved with the community and so on. So we're trying to encourage people to put energy into other things creatively, not just worship, but we do still love that and come up with mad ideas, and I enjoy that a lot. But I think the key really is creating an environment where creativity is part of the culture. I mean, I see that as a key role of leadership, creating environments where things are possible and can happen, rather than doing them all yourself. One of the challenges lots of groups have is that there are one or two experts who do all the stuff, whether that's leading a band or liturgy or whatever, whereas one of our value words is participation. So if you're part of Grace, you're going to have to get stuck in and involved, and I think having that environment where people participate helps a lot. I absolutely love alternative worship. It's kept me alive in terms of faith. I mean, I work for the Church Mission Society, so I connect with lots of different churches. And I have to say that in so many places I find the worship in church very, very dull. It drives me nuts. You can predict what's going to happen. It seems to be the same week in, week out, whereas I find alternative worship's full of surprises. People do creative things, they really put the effort in. I'm quite a visual person, so I love the visual environment. I love the connection between the rest of my life and faith, because sometimes I think with church it feels like you have to leave your world, go to another planet called church, and then back to the real world, whereas we're kind of on a journey, I suppose, making worship out of the stuff of everyday life. And I love that kind of connection with my life. And I think I enjoy the sense of community that I'm part of. Grace is quite a small community. I've been part of it now for about 12 or 13 years, I think, and have a very strong set of relationships with people. And it's a space where you can be real. There's no kind of pretending. Well, I mean, maybe there is, but not too much anyway. So yeah, I've got great relationships there, and it's home base for me, and I love it. I love being part of it. Yeah, so I enjoy most things about it, I suppose. It's not without its challenges. I mean, in Grace we don't employ anybody, so it kind of requires quite a bit of commitment on the part of volunteers, which can be hard, but I think we are committed to that. So that's, I mean, the UK is a bit different to the US, I think, in terms of all worship and emerging church, so I hope it makes some sense where you are. A lot of the alternative worship stuff is kind of reconnected with liturgical traditions, so it tends to be more located in mainline denominational churches or around the edges of them, whereas I think some of the emerging stuff in the US doesn't have that connection. I mean, one of the things I like about that connection is there's the sort of rich reservoir of stuff in the tradition that you can draw on and play with and mess with. So anyway, I mean, our contexts are bound to be different. Hope this helps in some way. Good to talk to you. See you sometime maybe. Okay, bye.